Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Gary Holt from Exodus and formerly from Slayer, and you're listening to The Razor's Edge.
Jim from Iron Monkey, thank you very much for giving me your time to talk about your new record and everything that's been going on. I appreciate that. Kind of initial question is that music's a bit of a strange one now, where everyone is kind of being quite open about their releases. They're constantly giving us information on their recording schedules, and to be honest, this is a record that the first I kind of really saw about it was when you guys released the first track. Was basically the viewpoint that after you released 913 that Iron Monkey was going to continue and you were going to be continually bringing out music?
Well, that was the plan. We put that the 913 out on end of 2017, and we immediately, start of 2018, we immediately went in the studio to put tracks together for a new record, and we got most of those tracks written by first half of 2019, maybe even before then. The intention was to just go straight to the studio and record a new album, but it didn't happen like that because there was basically there was just so many issues stacked up on top of each other that were just getting in the way. We had loads of problems, like personal problems and financial problems, injuries. I was injured a few times. A few of us, went to hospitals and people died, and then we obviously had a lockdown. We had a couple of lockdowns, didn't we? So, we'd made about three attempts to get in the studio and put it down. We also lost a band member during that time as well. We lost two because I had to replace the drummer. I had to replace Scott in 2018 because he moved to London. We wanted to kind of keep the band local so we could go in and write stuff regularly. So, we had loads of issues, and it took us nearly 6 years to actually put the, get the actual record, down, basically. Yeah. To actually record it. It was just a fucking nightmare, to be honest with you. And, there was a few times where, we almost decided to just completely pack it in. But we just kept going. Managed to get it out eventually. And as far as what we were saying before about bands constantly reminding you of the new releases coming out, I don't like doing that. I'd sooner not put anything at all on social media except for here's the new album. Yeah. And I don't discuss what the band's doing. There's literally a handful of people that knows what the band is doing at any given time. Because I think when I see other bands do it, I find that personally boring. Yeah, it's not, and also it just creates a bigger impact. We did that with 913. We didn't let anybody know really that we'd reformed the band. Yeah, and I think we, it was weeks probably before we dropped the album that we actually said, we'd reformed and here's a new record. It just, being on social media every week, here's a new riff, we've just practiced, here's this, here's that. I don't know. I think it weakens it, to be honest with you.
Okay, I get you. Kind of like it might cheapen the kind of effect of kind of like, boom, here's some new music.
Yeah, it creates a greater impact. In my mind, it's better to keep your mouth shut about anything that you're doing until you're actually doing it. Until it's actually happening. I'm not a fan of social media anyway, particularly. So I guess keep your mouth shut, then show what you've done when you've done it.
As opposed to keep kind of like talking about it and never actually.
Yeah. Well, I'm not. That bores me personally. So it must bore other people. I don't know. I don't know what people think, but like, that's how I think anyway.
With you obviously saying that you kind of that you went quite quickly from 913 to getting ideas down for this record. So was it a case of when you were initially putting ideas together that the creativity was just really flowing well, and you just thought, we've got these songs, but let's keep going whilst we've got this kind of spark? And did you find that
yeah, I mean, like in my head, you know, we'd put something out in 2019, and I've always got lots of ideas for tracks. I mean, I've got stuff ready to go for, you know, this project and other projects. I'm always, you know, recording, especially at home, you know, ideas. And so the creative side of it's never been a problem with this band. It's always been everything else that's been an issue with this band. You know, we're not a particularly lucky band. We've had a fair share of bad luck and problems, and that's just part of being in this band. You know, it's not fun for anybody. I actually feel quite sorry for people who are in this band. You know, it's quite amusing, I suppose.
When you're creating, you've obviously said that you've always got things that you're looking to do, and you've always got ideas that you're putting together. Is there a particular aspect of writing material for Iron Monkey that you see as the most important, or are there kind of like key things that you think, not that it needs to be to be that, but you think really make the songwriting more effective and a greater impact when people are listening to it?
Well, it's the riff. I mean, everything's, you know, it's a riffy band.
Yeah.
There are other elements, you know, that, I mean, I've been writing music for this band since we started, you know, most of the music since we started. So there is kind of a formula, but it's, you know, it starts with the riff, really. And then everything else comes after that. So it'll be, I mean, generally the songwriting process for this band starts with me. You know, I'll be at home. I'll get as much of a song together as I can, and we'll go to the studio with the drummer, and we'll get some rhythms to go along with it, and just tweak it. And the lyrics and the lyrics come later. And the actual, you know, I've said this before in other interviews, like with the vocals. I don't play. You know, when I'm in the rehearsal room, I don't play guitar, I do the vocals. So that's a last minute thing. That is literally, I'm in the booth, we're recording the album, we've done everything else, and then I'll do the vocals. Yeah. And I'm ad-libbing, and I'm doing quite a lot of ad-libbing. You know, it'll be the first time I've heard what the vocals are going to sound like as I'm doing them. And we did that on the last album as well. On the first two albums, Johnny was just, you know, he did that a different way. He was writing lyrics down in the practice room, but, you know, with me being the guitarist and the vocalist, I do those two things separately. And the vocals are literally right at the last minute. Okay. So yeah, but basically everything starts with the riffs and a general idea of, you know, what an Iron Monkey record's going to sound like, but also wanting to make it slightly different. Every album sounds slightly different. Yeah. The first album sound like the second album. You know, the first album's a slower album. It's quite a dark, I suppose, sounding album. The second album got a bit more energy to it. It's a bit more up tempo, and I think there's probably more Sabbath in the second album. The third album, which is you know, being a bit derided, but like that's the more kind of punk element came out on that album. That
was something I was going to actually ask, because when I first listened to 913, it was definitely had that more punky vibe to it. It was, you know, it had kind of like those you know, faster, more upbeat punky riffs to it. And when I've listened to this, when I was reviewing it, it was almost like you'd again not kind of gone back to like trying to sound like Iron Monkey of the past, but I had it felt more like a more like an older sounding, maybe more traditional sounding Iron Monkey record. Was that something that you wanted to actually try and look at doing with this one?
I think that was kind of subconscious more than anything else. And I think this new album's got the sound of the previous 3 albums. There's elements of every album on them. I mean, I just set up to write an Iron Monkey album.
Yeah.
I think 913, we deliberately made it a more faster, punky album. So I think there was a little bit more thought gone into that. And I know on Our Problem, there was I thought when we was putting the tracks together for that, I thought, we was going to take it a little bit faster. But we'd actually started after Our Problem, before the band split up. I think we put about 4 songs together for an album before we split them. That's never, we haven't reused those songs. They're just where they were in the 1999. But that was a much faster record. We were always going to speed up a little bit. And the hardcore punk thing, I mean, that's kind of part of sludge.
Yeah.
Where, it's supposed to be doom metal and hardcore punk, so you should be able to hear both styles of, you should be able to pick out both styles of music in that genre.
You hear those kind of like slow, like punishing riffs, and then there'll be at some point you'll just get that kind of like classic, like hardcore breakdown, but like, the actual classic sound where not the obviously the open palm muted beatdowny riff, just the proper grooved riff that flows.
You can do it in 2 ways. I mean, you can go really, really slow and then put like something fast in it, or you can put both elements in at the same time. You can have a doomy riff that's quite up tempo, or a hardcore punk riff that's slow. You can mix and match those 2 things within a riff, really. I mean, we were. I always consider us a hardcore punk band anyway. We didn't come from the metal scene.
Yeah.
We were all in hardcore punk bands when we started this band, and the bands that influenced us to start playing, we were introduced to those bands like IA God and Buzz Open from the hardcore scene. They were like, bands like Floor and Grief and other bands like that were kind of coming. They were coming out of that scene, really. Their early records were on kind of hardcore punk. Like, they weren't really on metal labels. And I always thought that the metal crowd got introduced to the kind of sludge sound a little bit later. Our early gigs were all hardcore punk gigs. We'd all been in hardcore bands, right? Prior.
Yeah.
And I've always considered us, to be hardcore guys playing, Sabbath or metal, really. That's the way I see it. That's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with hardcore is it's, yes, it's, it is a style, but there's an awful lot of it that is more of an attitude and feeling rather than just playing something that sounds like hardcore.
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends what you mean by hardcore as well, because when I think of hardcore, I'm thinking of 80s bands.
Yeah.
Especially early 80s bands, like bands that, I mean, like the hardcore tag in the 90s, like a lot of those more prominent hardcore bands were like metal bands, really. Yeah. They were playing metal. I mean, there's a big difference between some of those 90s bands and...
Of course, yeah.
They like Black Flag, Circle Jerks, Minor Threat, and other bands like that. It's hardcore punk is punk, It's not metal. In I guess like in the mid 80s, you had the crossover scene, like your Cro-Mags and Crumbsuckers and bands like that. But, well, I could go down this go down this rabbit hole, but I won't.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Obviously, you've mentioned that the lyrics and the vocals were kind of like the latter thing that you looked at with regard to this album. Is there any particular themes that flow throughout the entire record lyrically that you've put together?
Not what I usually do, and what with the lyrics on this album's, other albums, but probably more so on this album. I've kind of got 2 separate, for each song I've got kind of 2 separate ideas, lyrics, and then I just kind of merge those 2 ideas together to make something a bit more abstract. Okay. So there are sometimes 3 things in in each song, but most of them have got a couple of themes that I've kind of mixed together. And I mean, the lyric thing is probably, I enjoy that more than anything else. I mean, me and Johnny co-wrote the lyrics on the first 2 records anyway. You know? So I've always enjoyed doing that kind of thing. 913 had some more conventional lyrics on it, but I think this one's a little bit more abstract. But yeah, that's the lyrics are kind of written weeks before we do the album, and the vocals are done as we do the album.
With regard to the overall recording of it, because obviously you've mentioned it was written and there was lots of obviously obstacles in the way. How was the recording process? Was that was there a particular way that you wanted it to obviously be recorded? Because obviously you get a lot of process now, which they're very they're very tailored towards perfection.
We're definitely not tailored towards perfection. I mean, we've got Johnny Carter at the pushing the buttons. Used to be in pitch shifter. He knows us. We've known him a long time, and he knows what we want. He knows that kind of music. But we do it really conventionally, the way that we've always done it. Slightly differently, probably, to the first 2 albums, which were recorded live, and then the vocals and after.
So they were completely lively done. Sorry, they were just like complete as a band.
The first 2 albums we were all in the room together, apart from Johnny, and we had boards up to control the sound a little bit. Yeah. I'm not going to get technical with you because I don't know what I'm talking about, to be honest with you. 913 and this one were recorded. I usually put the one lot of guitars down with the drums. Then I'll go and do another lot of guitars and the bass and then the vocals. But it's nothing fancy particularly. There's nothing fancy about this band at all. There's no finesse involved. It's kind of we're a fairly stripped down band. And I think some of that's just to do with the fact that, me personally, I'm not a very, that technical side or gear side or any of that. I haven't got a clue about it, and I'm not really interested, to be honest with you. It's not something that particularly interests me.
It's just all about putting down those riffs.
Yeah, I'm really basic, but we're a very basic band. I've got a very basic setup, and it's getting in there, turning everything up loud, and just seeing what seeing what it sounds like.
Nice.
My equipment, I use an old Marshall 800, a metal zone pedal, and that's it. The limits of my technical abilities is probably changing the guitar string. Everything else, I literally rely on other people for, to be honest with you. If something goes wrong. So it's instinct, I guess, and just fucking turning it up. We're not a metal band, we're not a techie band or anything.
You want that honest sound, because at the end of the day, that's kind of it wouldn't sound right if it was, like I say, uber clean, uber polished. It needs that kind of level of authenticity about it to really give it that sound.
Well, yeah, it needs to be. You need that rawness in the style of music. And like I say, we're a punk band, really. And I don't feel that we're a metal band. I never have done, and we've always been like that. So yeah, everything's completely stripped down, and it seems to work. It works for me anyway, and I let Johnny fuck about with the knobs. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
make it sound big, make it sound raw as fuck, and off we go with it.
What do you think is going to... Because obviously you've mentioned that with, all the albums have a different sound to them. What do you think is the biggest difference with this one compared to the early material? Is there anything that you really think that people pick up on to say this is a slight tweak on the initial sound?
Well, yeah, the obvious one is the fact that Johnny's not singing on it and I'm singing on it. that's probably one of the biggest. That's the biggest difference. I mean, it's always been me, you know, mainly me writing music anyway. So, and I know the formula. I mean, I'm always, you know, always want to make it. I suppose subconsciously I want to make it slightly different. But like, I mean, the main thing is that we're a three-piece and I do the vocals. Yeah. I would say that's the biggest difference. And that's not something I particularly wanted to do either. I kind of talked into that. But we kind of like, we wanted to keep it in the family. It would have been wrong to get somebody else to do the vocals on this. Yeah. And I didn't even know I've never done vocals in a band before. Up until we were demoing the 913 and it seemed to sound okay. So we've continued with me doing the vocals, obviously. I wouldn't get anybody else in to do that.
No. You wanted to keep that as like you said, as what within the family of the obviously the musicians that were involved previously.
Yeah, and I mean that goes like that. Keeping the family ethos goes right into the artwork and who does the layout for us and who we deal with. You know, it's a really small circle. I mean, I've never felt that we've been particularly part of a scene. We've played with different scenes. I mean, I guess we kind of fit into even when we started and we the hardcore scene, we weren't playing hardcore really, so we always really fit anywhere. So we've always kept it, you know, within the family. It's just been like the Iron Monkey thing, really. I've never really wanted to fit into anything. I don't feel like I ever have really, particularly personally. So the band's kind of it's good in one way because it means you can, especially live when we were playing live shows before we played with all kinds of bands. We were playing with doom bands, we were playing with hardcore bands, we played with noise bands, noise rock bands, all kinds of different things.
Obviously, as well as you've got this new record out, I have noticed that the older material started to appear on streaming services again. I'm not sure if they were previously on there. Do you think there is?
Well, apparently I've been told. I mean, somebody mentioned that to me, but I don't pay any attention to that.
So I wasn't sure if it was something that you were involved in or not. My question was really going to be
definitely not. I'm not involved in anything to do with apart from writing music. I'm not involved in anything to do with those first albums.
Ah, right. Okay.
If you catch my drift.
Yeah, I'll catch your drift. That's fair. We won't put up that, bring up that.
I don't mind. I don't mind.
It was more just it was more
if you want, but I haven't got a lot to say about
that's
it.
Fair. No, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, the last question I've really got was with regard to, you know, what the future brings. Obviously, you've mentioned that, you know, there's ideas constantly floating around. So is it going to, and you've obviously said the idea was to continue the band. Is there going to be a chance for any potential live shows again? I mean, there was 3 that took part just after 913 was released. Is that something that is on the radar, or is it purely going to be down to just put together new music?
Well, we want to. And we've got Dean in the band, but Dean lives in Canada.
Yeah.
So we have to organise that really well so he can come over and do some shows. He's got a family, you know, other people in this band have got family. We're in his 50s. But it's something we want to do. We want to play those songs live, but we've just got to organise it really well.
Yeah.
People know, you know, I've had promoters approaching me regularly, but I'm sort of said to them, as soon as we've got that worked out, people, you know, you'll know about it, and people know about it. And as far as a new record, again, people will know about it when it's out, and hopefully it won't take quite as long this time.
No, but I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for answering the questions, and obviously look forward to seeing to obviously hearing new music when it drops and it's out there. But no, appreciate your time, thank you. And is there anything is there anything you just want to add at the end at all?
No,
that's cool.
No, particularly no.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with all of our interviews by subscribing to our channel. For all the latest news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website, www.therazorsedge.rocks.